Nice. Very nice wrap up. Guys, I see a lot of you are still tuning in, so I'll give you 2 more seconds and we'll get going. Great, awesome. I think we can start. Hey everyone, welcome to this month's Super Monday. My name is Danielle and I'm heading the publishing house at Supersonic. We have super interesting sessions prepared for you today, starting with Uri, our marketing research manager, which I like to call our trendologist. Uri will give you tips on ideation and inspiration for your next prototype. We also have Vinny with us, our senior game developer, who will share his insights of maximizing your chance of success while working on your next product. So something to keep in mind. And now, why are we sharing tips about ideation and building games fast to get you ready for our third Supersonic Superstars competition? Yes, yes, you see it right. This year, we're going all in, which means you can have the chance to win our grand prize of $2 million. Dude, you heard it right. And it's not just for one game or one studio, it's unlimited, meaning multiple studios can win the prize. Let's get a drill down of it. It's not all. We're giving out also $1 million for every game that passes the 4 million installs mark on iOS US. Third prize is actually for every game which is launched globally, so you can immediately win $200,000. And again, there are unlimited. Where is my screen? Great, found you again. Actually, this is not all. So you can also win a lot of other bonuses, and we also have a lottery program. So this Superstars, we're trying something new. We decided to open our 3 main UA channels to help you predict success earlier on, not only social, but also SDK networks using IronSource. And yes, we grant prizes for each network benchmark. And before you ask, it's cumulative. So you can keep collecting prizes along your testing period, even for more than one game. The lottery is super cool. So each time you'll submit a game, you'll receive a ticket. And at the end of each competition, the competition will have a lottery where you can win lots of cool prizes. I'm not going to tell you about all the cool prizes, but yes, Supersonic swag is a part of it. To break down the different prizes, so we have $20,000 prize for testing on Facebook, for a CPI under 30 cents and a day one over 30%, day one retention, $20,000 also for testing on IronSource. We'll tell you more about it. But basically for an IPM over 35 and a day one over 30%, you'll win $20,000. RPM is installs per mil. Mil is 1,000 impressions. So 35 installs per 1,000 impressions over that grants you this prize. $10,000 for testing on TikTok for CPI under 15 cents and a day one over 30%. All of these are going to be on our website and in our platform very soon. So you'll be able to see all of the prices and all of the info. Basically, we have many really exciting features for you for this competition. So what's new? First of all, as I said, we're going to launch our advanced marketability test. So this year we'll have the ability to test on Facebook, TikTok, and IronSource. As you know, predicting the marketability potential of a prototype is one of the most challenging parts in the hyper-casual world. Yes, sometime, and it's something that we really did well over the past 2 years. And thanks to that, we published unicorns, which were actually rejected by other publishers. But now it's time to actually take it to the next level and be better with that. So in the past few months, we've been working on building the right processes and benchmark for each network. And of course, building the tech around it to allow the automation for a huge amount of prototypes. So we'll offer this feature as a part of the Supersonic Superstars 3 competition, but it will also be available on the platform for you from now on. So that's amazing. We'll also be offering an ideation kit with everything around trends, guide, best practices for ideating your game concepts, basically fresh out of the oven from our methodologist, which I told you about before. This is to help you aim better towards the right concepts. And we'll have the creative assistant. So for every qualified concept, we have a dedicated team of creative geniuses who are ready to help you squeeze the lemonade out of your CPI and create hundreds of winning videos for your game. Yes, very exciting. Lastly, we have our Super Squad. It's actually a dedicated team of 3D artists and developers, which are joining with you for the advanced testing of your game and actually helping you push your game before launch. So anything you need regarding UI, meta, any other features you want to add to your game later on, which will be a huge asset for your team. So I know you've been wanting to hear about it. Here's the timeline. Please add it to your Google calendars. Take a screenshot. I'll wait. Please take a screenshot. I'll wait. You got it? Great. February 7th, which is actually 3 weeks from today, our platform will start collecting your submissions and our team will support your ideation process and iteration process to get ready for launch before our wrap-up event in May, which will summarize the whole competition. Q3 will be announcing the rest of the winners, so all of the winners from the competition. Get ready for that. Again, please take a screenshot. Yes, super excited. Just to remind you, last year's competition winner was Bridge Race, who was actually the most downloaded game of 2021 worldwide, which is huge. Hopefully you will be the next winner of the competition, and obviously many other hits. And I want to thank you for your time and move to our lovely speakers today. One last thing from me, let's just go start baking our prototypes for February 7th to go get ready. Now let's hear our speakers. Uri.
Hi, everyone. Let me just share my slides. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm doing market research. My name is Uri. I'm doing market research here at Supersonic. So yes, I get to play games most of the day. Someone has to do it. And I will share some market trends and ideation tips, starting with trends we've seen in the past few months that worked very well, trends that we see in the past few weeks, and some ideation tips that will help you make a game that will hopefully reach top charts with us. Starting with the hyper-casual market trends. So those were the top 10 US games in hyper-casual in 2021. So as you see here, a lot of runners, puzzle games, and simulation games, and we will touch all of those games in the next couple of minutes. Starting with runners, 2021 was definitely the year of runners, and we saw 4 main types of runners. So starting with female stacking, so different body parts, stacking always work in the games in runners. So we had the high heels, we had the hair challenge, nail stack, and all of those similar games. Opposite narratives also worked very well. Poor versus rich, young versus old. This is example for Run Rich 3D. So again, in those 2 examples, you can see fast changes. They always gain loss. I'm always progressing with the runner. So those are 2 types that worked very well. The other 2 types that work also very well, multiplier gates, account masters leading the way, Again, I'm starting as a crowd. I'm starting with few people. Then I'm growing. I need to make decisions in the runner. And this game also worked very well. And resizing characters. Again, I'm a character. This is in Blob Runner. I'm a character. I'm adding what needed to grow. Then I'm almost dying with obstacles. And then I'm resizing again. So those 4 top types of runners worked very well. Again, lots of gain and loss, positive and feedback, positive and negative feedback all the time. I'm growing, I'm resizing all the time. So those are examples for 4 games that work, but each one of them started this mini trend. For example, female stacking, we talked about its high heels, and we saw her challenge and stake on the same trend. Same with narrative opposites, usually by the same publisher, because the publisher kind of starts the trend. But once you notice the trend, you can try it as well. So we had similar with narrative opposites, similar with multiplier gates, and also with resizing character, where we also published a few games like Prop and Run that did well, and Human Vehicle. So each one of them started a trend and made like few other games that are similar, but different concept and different execution. So how to turn your game into a runner? The truth is that any game can become a runner. You can see on the bottom here a few examples of runners from the past weeks that reached top charts. So they're all based on this simulation game or another game that reached top charts. Slap Kings was a PvP game that did very well a few years ago. And Slap and Run also using the Slap theme and worked very well. Streamer Life was a top simulation game a few months ago, and Streamer Rush is a runner. So also we published a Get Rich, and Investment Run is kind of a runner using the same invest theme. So even when you see a simulation game at top, like ask yourself, okay, can I make it a runner? Maybe it's worth trying. So the idea is that any concept can become a runner at the end of the day. And we'll see some more examples over here. Animal Transform was a game that is a mixed runner, a kind of a runner when you tap the ability of the animal, and then it can swim, it can run fast. So what Merge Animals did is taking the same game and bringing this, changing the animal ability to the pre-level, and then it became this runner as we know runners, when I move and I can control the direction I'm going. So it's kind of take games that are almost runners and think, okay, can I make it a runner? Because we know a runner works. This is another example from the same publisher. Let's Be Caps was more of a simulation game. I'm pulling over people because of the car speed is too fast, and then I need to make decisions. So it's more of a simulation game. And they kind of ask themselves, how can we take it into a runner or more of a chasing game? And they just changed the point of view, changed in the camera angle, made it a totally new game, which also did well in a couple of last few months. So just think of changing the camera angle, changing the point of view, anything that can make it a sort of a runner might work. We'll also talk about multipliers. So multipliers, we talked about it in runners with Crowdmaster working very well, but it also worked in many other games. Bounce and Collect, where I drop a ball. We also had escalators, so where multipliers reduce CPI. What multipliers do is just giving these fast changes. I'm one ball, I'm one person, and then I'm going through the multiplier gate, and then I become big. So think about the creative that in few seconds you need to deliver the message, and multipliers help you like show this fast transformation. So those are examples for games with multipliers. Here you can see a lot of games with balls and multipliers. So same concept, balls and multipliers, but different execution. It can be a runner, it can be a PvP game, it can be a puzzle game. So all of these games, some haven't scaled, but all have multipliers and balls and different game at the end of the day. So you can take this in other ideas as well. We can't ignore TikTok. TikTok is the name for any social media, for any something that went viral. So those are examples for few games we had in last year that came from TikTok or a viral video that had like millions of views. So at the beginning of the year, it was mainly Crazy Labs games. They did very well on this DIY games. And then on the second half, we had fidget toys. We had some few days challenge, like Meat Crate Challenge was a few days challenge on TikTok. And if you were fast enough to make a prototype in few weeks and launch a game, then it stayed in top for a few days. But also DIY games are very strong. We can see more games. We will see more of these games next year. So just make sure you follow TikTok. We will share tips as well. And Color Match and Pac Marks are a game that we published a month ago and did very well. Color Match is still in top charts. So we'll see more of this game based on trends, based on any TikTok that had millions of views can be a game at the end of the day. So we talked about examples. What good about TikTok is the hashtag. So you can see tie-dye, for example, is a hashtag that has over 5 billion views. So it means that a lot of people notice this hashtag. You can see top videos. It can be a channel, as you can see in the middle. Someone that posts videos every day, and most of them don't have lots of views, but it's enough that one will have like 50 million views. And if it can be gamified and turned into a game, then it's worth trying. And we also had a few of these games, Better Late Than Never, Park Marks, which is like painting road marks, that you have lots of viral videos of this on TikTok, and Color Match that did very well in top charts. Garwell Games already had a prototype around mixing colors, but only once they noticed this channel of someone mixing colors and comparing it to an object, they said, okay, maybe let's try in an object, and the rest is history. And this game did surprising very well. Puzzle games. We know puzzle games work. They have high retention. 5 of top 12 games in 2021 were puzzle games. So it's easy to go to simulation games and runners, but don't forget puzzle games. If you have a good puzzle game, a good mechanic, it can stay top for over a year. And we see some games here that were launched almost a year ago, or even more, that are still in top charts. And you don't always have to innovate on a new puzzle mechanic. For example, take Stacky Dash. You have so many similar puzzle games out there with the same mechanic. And what Stacky Dash did is just added stacking, it added the different progression, and it added character and made it a totally new puzzle game. But again, you can see similar puzzle games with the same concept out there. So don't always try to innovate with a new game puzzle. See what puzzle game works and try to bring something else to the table. Talking about hottest trend we see now, stacking always works in runners. It also works in bridge race, Stacky Dash, puzzle games, IO, you name it. So we see more forward stacking games, as you can see on the right. So we know up stack is the normal stack we know from games, the side stack from roof race, for example. And we see a lot of forward stack games, and we see more of them published soon. It takes most of the screen. It's harder to control, but it gives you the possibility to upgrade items. And it's a different kind of runner that we see more of those runners being published. So even you can try and think of different stacking that doesn't exist here and try to be innovative on stacking mechanic that might work for you as well. We see a lot of money runners. Money is a theme that used a lot. Money, boss, female, any character that you see a top game doing well. And you can see prototypes again, just changing the game theme. So money works very well, many in runners. Idle Arcade is something that made this mini comeback a few months ago. We saw all these strong games and that did very well with Idle Arcade. Usually Idle Arcade games, we also publish some games. We have some games that we work on. Usually they have higher CPI compared to simulation or runner games, but they offer like higher ARPU, higher playtime. So keep that in mind. And let's go to the last part about ideation tips. Some tips that we can share with you. Innovate beyond theme. For example, you can see on the left here, when Idle Arcade became popular, so in the same week, we had like 3 similar games published by top publisher, all around restaurant and Idle Arcade. Since I'm moving around, it makes sense to manage a restaurant. Some of those games are starting to scale now. So some themes are still untouched, and you can try and make prototypes for this Idle Arcade, but try to innovate, as the example you can see here with Join Lumberjack, that I'm also adding the join mechanic into the Idle Arcade. So it's not only about creating a new theme, but also adding like a different stacking, an IO, a join, or something else into the Idle Arcade world. You can just simply change the theme. Dodgemaster was a game that did very well a few months ago. And what Move people did is like, instead of doing an action game where I'm trying to avoid bullets, let's make it an everyday game with a funny situation, a couple situation. And this game did extremely well. So you can look at something that works and okay, say I'm going to change the theme. I'm doing something different. We talked about you can change the mechanic or the camera angle. We talked about multipliers and balls. You can see here 3 different games, all with multipliers and balls. One time it's a drop game. I'm dropping more of a puzzle game. One time it's a platform game where I'm controlling the platform. And one time it can be a runner. So all games have multipliers, balls, and three similar concepts, but different execution, different category. We talked about TikTok. So what's good about TikTok is the hashtags. As you can see, the fidget toys, we talked about this trend, the poppy trend starting in May and June. So you can follow, actually the hashtag show you the top videos. So in the middle, you can see like how to make a fidget toys was also a top TikTok video. And fidget toy maker said, okay, let's make it a game. You can see this is the video on TikTok. This is the game, look the same. This game also did very well. So just follow hashtags. We also share some insight how to do it. Some trends never get old. As you can see, the drawing trend. Some games were very in top charts in 2020. And we also published 3 games in 2021. Draw Weapon also did very well. So also look at trends from 2-3 years ago and ask yourself, how can we bring something new or how can we innovate on that trend? Because some trends never get old. And the last tip I will share with you before moving on is like watch creative first, understand the creative first, because what you're building is a game, but you start with a prototype to check CPI. So for example, you can see Remove People, this Make Him Trip situation got a 64 CPI, but if you had like a funny situation, more of a couple situation, then CPI was lowered by half. So you got to ask yourself, yeah, play the games that you try to take ideas from, but also understand the creatives to understand, okay, how do they reach low CPI and what should I aim for when creating the prototype and aiming for that low creative. Thanks for your time. Let's move on to Vinny.
Uri, amazing. Thank you. That was super insightful. And for me, it gave already a great inspiration for the next prototype. Before we are hearing Vinny, I just wanted to remind you guys that our Q&A is open and we're here for you. So at the end of Vinny's session, we're just going to read out the questions. So feel free to write any question you have in mind in the chat, and we'll get to that after. Vinny, stage is yours.
Okay. So let me share my screen. And well, hello, everyone. As Uri said, like it was really good. All those tips that about the marketing, and I'm pretty sure that every one of you is like with your brains like sparking many ideas. And I'm here to talk a bit like how I make my games faster. And for you that don't know me, I'm the senior game developer at Supersonic. And I worked at the gaming industry for more than 8 years already. And on my first 6 years making games, I was making games I was making games for PC and for consoles, for VR. And on the last 3 years, I decided to make smaller games. I went to mobile, then I went to hyper casuals. And at this time, I worked with many publishers already. I made more than 30 prototypes. And I'm here with you guys to share some tips. So first of all, the lean hyper-casual model is a model that reduces the risk and also makes us deliver the smallest products as possible. We are here to try to fail as fast as we can because we don't want to spend 1 month, 2 months in a prototype that's not going to be launched. Like our time is really valuable. And also the lean hyper-casual model is really good because it's an iterative process, meaning that we only work on a prototype as soon as we know that it has good marketability, it has good potential. And also we focus a lot on the market validation, and that's all about the hyper-casual. So imagine those 2 scenarios. We have game 1 with retention around 40%, which is really good for a first test, but we can have like the CPI of $3. And we have game 2 with really bad retention around 20% day 1. And this could be even lower, around 15% day 1, but we have a CPI of 30 cents or even lower. So which of those games are better for the publisher? And also it's better for you to have a more chance of getting published. So in this case, obviously is the game 2 because the CPI is much harder to get a good number. And that's what you're going to focus on. I want to talk a little bit about the product value curve and I want to make this analogy with a car. So imagine that you're driving a car and you're going from 0 to the top speed. So that's how the curve of your speed goes. Here on the left, you can see that the car gets speed really fast, and from 0 to 30 seconds, you're almost in the top speed. But on the later 30 seconds, we are putting a lot of effort. You're spending a lot of time to get like just this tiny bit of value in the end. And basically, that's how a product works, and that's how our game works. At first, the first day of the prototype, the first weeks of the prototype, you have actually nothing. So you're starting from a point that you have really low value. And every feature that you do, you start adding a lot of value to your product, but there is a time that you don't make that much of a difference. So after a while, you have this point that you're spending a lot of resources and adding just a small value that maybe you don't need to do that. So we need, us as game developers, we need to find where is our sweet spot of our game. So what value is enough to test our game? Always ask yourselves, and also what amount of resources you want to spend on a prototype that you're making. So how do you finish the game faster? Don't do like this. Don't work hard. Don't work harder. Don't go up like overnight. It's better to work smarter. So the question here is not about how to finish your game faster. We are making prototypes. We don't want to make a super finalized game. We want to test the game as fast as possible. So this way we can avoid working on something that is not profitable at the end. So I'm here to show some tips on how you can test your game faster. So talking about the test and hyper casual, it's all about how to make the right features first. So here prioritization is really key for your team. So don't do all the tasks, choose the right ones, the one that will look better in a video, because at the end we are always trying to test the game for the CPI test, and focus on what brings values to the player. So second one, talking about CPI again, CPI is our greatest risk, is the best metric that we can achieve. So we need to focus on that at first. So this means that every time we have a new idea and have a new prototype, we want to organize ourselves as a team and make the task that's going to look right in the video. So if the task is complicated and the task is not going to be is not going to appear in the video, maybe you should skip it for now. And also, if you have a new game idea that you cannot explain the idea in 10 seconds of video or even 5 seconds, maybe the idea is not that hyper casual. Tip number 3, invest in the core gameplay. So the core gameplay is one thing that is 90% of your video, of your CPI. Anything that is related to the core gameplay, you need to tweak as much as you can. The execution makes a lot of difference when talking about this core gameplay and the video. Also, the game feeling is another important thing, because we see that we need, even with those simple games, hyper casual is really simple, we need to nail the feeling. So the player, even playing a simple game, he has this feeling of awesomeness. He's making something really nice, and visual feedback make the games really clear. This is an example that I like to use of a different level of execution. If we look at those two games, we have Dig and Escape on the left and Escape Masters on the right. And on the left, those games, they have the same game rules, but on the left, the game has, I wouldn't say worse, but they have less details, less particles, so makes the game not feel as good as the right one. Also on the right, you see better colors, the better tone overall. And even with the same rules, the right game performed much better than the left one. Also, another tip, set a deadline for your prototypes. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the name game jams, but game jam is a thing that we need to start a game from scratch and finish the game on 3 days. And most of the game developers and teams, they are able to finish a game in 3 days on a game jam, but on daily work basis, they usually take 1 month, 2 months to make a prototype. And this is because of the lack of the deadline. So here, when you have a really good deadline, it makes this sense of urgency in our subconscious and make us forced to prioritize the right tasks. And if we have a deadline, we can, and then we are making a game, we say that the deadline is 2 weeks, 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, we can evaluate and say, okay, should we stop now and test the game, or should we try to improve it? And if you don't have this deadline, you might keep on this loop of making the game perfect and perfect and perfect. And when you test, it doesn't have a good CPI. Also, tip number 4, create a generic template, just simple generic UI thing, something with the menu screen, victory screen, lose screen. I personally hate making UIs for my games. So when I started working with hyper casual, I realized that most of the hyper casual has the same UI flow. So I thought with myself, I'll just create a simple UI system that I can use for all my games. And this saves a lot of time because I'm never starting from scratch. And not only about the UI, we also have a lot of SDKs that we keep implementing, like Facebook SDK, Game Analytics SDK, and so on. So this is the example of the UI that I made at first and what I'm using for all the prototypes that I'm doing. So here you can see that I have the menu screen here. Then I have the level system on the top. I also have the currency on the top as well, and the victory animations, right? Okay. Tip number 5, be organized. You never know that if you're going to use the assets that you're making today on your future ideas. So try to make things organized, try to name your files. So I don't know if by any chance in 3 months from now you have a new idea, you might remember an asset that is useful for you. And that's it. So those are the tips that I like. Those are the good tips to do. And now I'm going to go with the tips to avoid. And this, I'm a really big fan of this session because after making more than 30 prototypes already, I learned a lot. And we need to keep improving as developer and not do the same mistakes. And I hope you guys learn with me so you don't make the same mistakes that I did all my life. So here we go. Adding sounds to the game. Most of the players play mobile without the sound. And adding sound, it's in terms of development, is a little bit tricky because it's a lot of time consuming. You need to find the sounds. Probably if you have a hyper casual team, you don't have a dedicated sound designer for that. Also, when you implement the sound, you need to make sure the game is balanced in terms of sound, otherwise it's going to be a lot of noise and actually could make the game worse than without sounds. We can see some top games that has no sounds and reach top 1. And also making sounds actually will add some bugs. That's our life as developers. We're always trying to implement a new thing and we think that everything is going to go right and good and perfect. And when we test the game, there's a lot of bugs to fix. And this actually delay our prototype. And then we lose 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, only fixing one bug that is not that relevant. Mistake number 2, many levels on the first iteration. When I was making my games, I'm not a good level designer, I can say that. But I thought myself that levels make a lot of difference when testing the game. So I always aimed for 10 levels, 20 levels, something like that. And actually the first game that I published had 3 to 5 levels on the first test. And sometimes my prototype, I made all the core gameplay, everything in 1 week, 2 weeks, and I spent one more week just making levels. And this week is one thing that you can save your time, because again, you never know if your game is going to have a good CPI, is going to have a good marketability. So try to keep lean and make less as possible. Also, try to make it the level a little bit more procedural. I know that this is not applicable when you're talking about more level design games like the puzzle games, for example, but on runners, you can make it procedural and just do some kind of repetition. Also, mistake number 3, and I love this cat, is getting too excited with your game. I always get excited with my games. It's my idea, so we tend to get too excited and we want to make the best game as possible, because that's the reality of game developers. We like to make games. That's why we are here in this business. But just don't go too far. Don't go crazy implementing customizations, implementing meta games, and implementing niches, because we think that those features might make our retention go to 40% and 50%. But at the end, if the CPI is not good, we're just spending a lot of time, and this could take 3 weeks of development. That if your game is not successful, you can expend the 3 new weeks just going into a new prototype, and also leads a lot of frustration. So if you spend a lot of time in a prototype because you really believed it, and the data at the end shows that it wasn't that marketable, you get frustrated, and it's really hard to start a new prototype again after something like this. So some final thoughts: keep it lean, try to prioritize your tasks cautiously. Don't work that hard. Don't work like 24 hours a day. Just focus on the right tasks at a time, and do more in less time. That's it. Focus on the tests as fast as possible. And thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Vinny. Exactly. Remember that. Thank you, guys. We have many questions, both here in the Q&A and on our Instagram. So I'm going to mix it up and we'll try to answer as many questions in around 10 minutes that we have. First question I have, Uri, is for you. So we got a question on Instagram. What's the best place to get information about new game trends?
Yeah, so basically the first thing to do is like follow top charts. I mean, a lot of you are not based in the US. So my first tip is like change the store to the US. So every time you're on your personal phone, you will see the top games on the US now. So every few hours, every few days, I log in to see top charts, new games in the US by category. We also published the insights with our managed studios. We also published some insight with our self-serve studios. I mean, so we just like see what's being launched, what's being published, what's in top charts. Like always, every week, you're gonna hear something surprise, a new game coming out of TikTok, coming out of nowhere. So it's always like seeing what's trending and like be on top charts almost every day.
For sure, and yeah, and adding to everything, just follow us on Instagram and check out our check out everything we post on our blog. So basically, it's digest of everything that we just said. So great, thank you, Uri. One question for Vinny by Leo. Vinny, what would you consider to be the biggest predictor of success in a game? Example, a new mechanic, following a trend, etc.
So this is a tricky question because actually you cannot predict. And the most successful games out there, it's really hard to predict that they were to be a success. But for me personally, like from my experience, going for a new mechanic, if it's simple, yes, for sure. But if it's a new mechanic that needs a lot of explanation, you might need, I don't know, 10 seconds to explain the video. And if the person doesn't understand the video, the CPI is not going to be good for sure. And when you're following a trend, you're not following that alone. There are many hyper-casual developers that are following the same trend probably. So then the competition is a little bit higher. So if you have a new mechanic that you think that fits the hyper casual and no one is doing this, it's easy to understand. Go for that for sure.
Great answer, Vinny. Thank you for that. This is a question for me, which is a really easy to answer. So can one studio win multiple prizes with multiple prototypes? So yes, like I said before a few times, the prizes are unlimited, meaning you can submit one game that will be successful, and the second game will also be eligible to all prizes, including the grand prizes, which I talked about before, the 2 million, the 1 million, the 200,000, and the bonuses on the way to success, the networks bonuses. So the question is yes. The answer is yes. Yes. Another question for Uri from our Instagram page. Why are runner games so hyped? Why are they so hyped up? And do you think it will end?
I'm not sure it's going to end. Maybe it will change, but runner games give you that every level is like 20, 30 seconds. That I now have 5 minutes of free time. Then I get to play a few levels on the runner. We talked about gain and loss, positive and negative feedback all the time. So I'm growing, then I have obstacles, then I'm going again. Then I'm almost losing, but then I'm going again. So in few seconds, I get so much emotional and so much changes. So that works. And like every time we have a new concept, female runners, we talked about multipliers. So we'll see a new trend every few months, and we see similar runners on this trend also doing very well. So like always search for the next runner trend.
Yep. Thank you, Uri. Vinny, wouldn't making a game with great polish visual like Escape Master takes way longer than one with a simple visual?
Not really. Like, I don't think that Escape Master has that polished visual. Like, it's just a matter of choosing the right shaders and taking care of your colors. So things will stand out more, and not about making a lot of content. So if we think about those slides that I shared, it's basically changing the segment for something that is more readable on the screen, and also changing the colors so things will stand out more. What can I carve on the game? What I cannot carve, like this piece of metal that is kind of gray, and then the game makes more sense, and it's actually clear to see in 1 second, 2 seconds, because that's where you want to get the attention of your customer.
For sure, for sure. Okay, another question for all of us. So what are the main things to show in a CPI video? And I think Vinny discussed it before and touched it, but I can complete. So yeah, basically very fast snapshot of the core gameplay. So what's the gameplay about, the main hook? Try to fit it in the first 2 seconds. Try to fit it in even in a way that, like in a snapshot, right? You're taking a picture of the video, try to see if you understand the gameplay from that picture. And this is the main thing. So basically core gameplay and nothing else. I wouldn't try too many things on the video, especially in the prototyping phase at the beginning, just so to make sure that the gameplay, it's what's interesting here, not anything else, any trend or IP that's trending out there. So this is what I would focus on. Uri and Vinny, if you have anything to add, feel free.
Yeah, if you want to experiment with your own game, just take the best snapshot that you can, that you think that snapshot explains the game, and then ask your mother to say what she understood from that. And with her answers, you might have an idea if it's a good snapshot or not.
That's a really good point. Like someone from a different perspective, because you obviously know the game, you know what's about. So try your mother, your aunt, or someone in the street. Usually it works well. Thanks, Vinny. Uri, a question for you. Tung is asking, you said that every simulation game can be transformed to a runner game. So what kind of content can be successful? For instance, escape or cheating or love, etc.
Yeah, so there's no right or wrong answer here. Like the idea, just try as much as you can. Like if you see top simulation game, and you think that it can be a runner, I mean, just try to add something like you should know runners, what runners work, different type of gates for runners to just, if you see top simulation games, it's worth trying. Like there's no right or wrong, just try prototypes. Some things work better, some things don't work, but again, just try to make a clarity with the prototype, with the CPI, with the creative, and just try. There's no wrong answer here.
For sure. Question for me from Andrew. What's the best place to acquire users for testing? So there's obviously social networks like Facebook, which give you a really, really fast picture of marketability. Fast, by fast, I mean with time and budget that you need to use for this UA. Gives you a good picture of in terms of demographics, etc. And second of all, obviously a big part of user acquisition while the game is in global launch is SDK networks, which this is the exact point that I discussed before, which we can also do marketability testing in an earlier stage using iResource network now through our platform. So this is something that completes the picture and helps you predict your marketability and profitability later on in an earlier stage, before you're adding ads, before you're working on the game, before you're building progression and retention. So this is a really, really important place to look at. But basically social and SDKs as well, Facebook, TikTok, ironSource, these are the place that I would start from while prototyping, and then later on open in more networks. Another question from Vinny. I see that we're almost out of time, so we'll try to squeeze in another one. Any tips on getting free assets for hypercasual?
Well, probably you know that there are many free assets on the asset store, right? But I wouldn't go with that. Like at first, I was a solo developer working for publishers like you guys, and I was really afraid of buying assets on the asset store, and there are really cheap assets there, like around $10 or $5 some of them. And if we think that this could be even cheaper than a pizza, maybe we can try to invest ourselves, and if the asset's going to help us be faster, not only on the next prototype, but on the next 5 prototypes, the next 10 prototypes that we made, maybe it's a good investment that we can take. But there are also a lot of free assets on the asset store that can save a lot of time as well.
Amazing, thank you. Another one for Uri by John. Most of the games you mentioned climb very fast to the top charts. My question is how long they stay on top?
Yeah, before that, I actually know John from my days in Playtika. I was 5 years doing the same market research in the in-app purchase world. And what kind of like in the hyper casual is that every few months you have this success story of someone having a different job and making games at night. And then he put this game with prototype on our self-serve. And a few months later, I mean, him, a publishing manager and a game designer, like 3 people working in one game, and then reach a top chart. So this is what is different from in-app purchase world to hyper casual. And some games, it depends on the timing. For example, last month we didn't have a lot of new games. So some games even stayed in top charts for a month. Like top charts can be receiving games launched a year ago, like still in top 50, top 20, top 100. So they won't last in top 10 for more than a few weeks, few months, but they still stay in top 50, top 100. Like top games have DAU of over 1 million users every day. So they still get users, but most of them come on the first few days. But yeah, they can stay in top 20, top 50 for almost a year, even more, if it's a good game.
For sure, you can look at the top 100 today and see some of Supersonic's games that were published a year and a half ago. So yeah, really depends on the success of the game. One last question, although I see that we have a lot of questions coming up in the Q&A and in the chat on Instagram, but I'm sorry, you guys, we'll keep on everything on our Instagram page, and feel free to also message me, Uri and Vinny, and we're here to help you. One last question, Vinny, what's the best practices on how to choose your color palette?
This depends on your game, of course, but what I do is just look at the top charts, see how is the top games, what colors they are using at the moment, but also check the games that has more into the game that you're going on. So if you're doing a game about like couples, go look at the couples games. If you're making a game about balls, you're making like a runner ball game, choose the all ball games that you have so you can see what is the tone that they are using on the top charts, so you can make your game also like good in the eyes, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a really good answer. Use competitive analysis. Someone broke their heads over it already and made
Yes.
a lot of testing and a lot of videos in order to understand what's the best case scenario. It goes on everything regarding videos, by the way, right? So yeah, you can see everything there. Thank you so much, Vinny and Uri. It was an amazing session. We should do that every month. Actually, we're doing that every month. Thank you every time for everyone for joining and listening. I remind you one last time, February 7th, this is the day that we'll be starting our insane competition. So start working on your prototypes and see you next month. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.